So Hillary Clinton is resurfacing again. She just did a new interview on MSNBC. I'm going to show you this clip. It always amazes me how many lies she can tell in such a short amount of time. Check it out.
We have got to stop demonizing each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I think most of that right now in our country's history is coming, from the right, coming from people who want to dominate. They want their point of view. Writing out slavery from history, that doesn't make it go away. We have got to stop with the finger pointing and the scapegoating.
First off, she starts her statement by saying we shouldn't be demonizing people, and then she immediately shifts into demonizing people, especially a specific group of people known as the right or conservatives. They're the problem. Let's stop demonizing people, but they're the problem. Look at them. Number two, she falsely classifies the individuals who are demonizing people as the right. It is the left who is demonizing. It is the liberals. They've been doing this. We've seen them demonize Trump. We've seen them demonize conservatives. They call them Nazis, call them fascists. We see them demonize Christianity. We've seen them demonize people like Charlie Kirk. And every time they demonize somebody, we see people going out there and targeting individuals. Donald Trump was targeted. Charlie Kirk's targeted. Right now we have ICE agencies being targeted through the same demonization. And this lady has the gall to say, stop demonizing. Then she demonizes and then picks a group that is, in fact, not doing the demonizing. I'm not saying that not everyone on the right is doing this. There's certainly individuals who are out there demonizing people, but this is not where the core of the problem is. And then she goes to this ludicrous idea of that she says, I don't know if it's on the top of her head or whatever, but if we think that we could just erase slavery, you can't just erase slavery from our history. Like somehow the right or conservatives are trying to erase the historical reality that slavery existed at a point in the United States of America. I would go so as far as saying this. If you ask any kid, ask any middle schooler or high school, go up to them and ask them this simple question. Name something you know about United States history. I guarantee you the majority of the responses you are going to get is that the United States of America has slavery. Slavery is basically the only thing they know. They don't really know too many other broad, interesting, specific topics about the United States. But if there's something that has been jammed into the minds of our young people throughout the entirety of their public school education, it is America had slavery. America is the slave nation. Regardless of the reality that slavery was practiced all over the planet, that other countries had it far longer than the United States did, that other countries had far more slaves than the United States, that other countries are still having slavery, that more slaves were actually brought to South America and the Caribbean rather than the United States of America, that there was millions of white slaves who were brought into Africa through the Barbary pirates. None of this matters. America is a slave nation. They're racist and disgusting. This is the one thing that students know. So her statement that somehow this is trying to be erased from our history, I would actually take the complete opposite view. If I was there interviewing her, which she would never allow, I would challenge her on that and say, actually, I think it's the only thing students know. It's the only thing they know about our history is slavery. They don't even know what the Revolutionary War is. You could ask them what that is. Most of them will be confused by this, but they know slavery, and they do know the Civil War because it's attached to slavery. That's what they got. And then she tries to push this idea that the erasing of slavery, which is not existing, is somehow being done by the right. They're trying to erase it. But in reality, if you look at history, the only times when slavery was attempted to be erased, kind of, from the United States history, it was done by Democrats. That's right. Democrats actually portrayed slavery as a good thing. They tried to portray the Civil War as not a war over slavery, but a war over states' rights versus federal rights. They also portrayed slaves as being happy and they were being provided for. This was done by Democrat writers in the South. And in addition, it was introduced into Democrat counties and states through the textbooks that they were creating, in which they were trying to tell the students, these Democrats were trying to tell students that slavery was actually not all bad, that the slaves were provided for, they were given food and a place to stay, and they were very happy because of this. Democrats actually did this in United States history. That's trying to erase slavery. Conservatives, The right trying to erase slavery right now? I don't think so. That is not happening. There may be some individuals who are trying to consider, are we teaching this in the most appropriate, best way for students to actually understand the reality of what's going on? That's a good question. Maybe something we should relook at and try to formulate better, because right now I can tell you when students get through high school, they don't have a great understanding how institutionalized slavery actually worked. If they even looked at, well, how did slavery end? Do they know anything about the end of slavery, how it was westernized ideas that actually brought the end of slavery, that slavery existed since the beginning of humanity, thousands upon thousands of years, and it was only the Western world, Western ideas, through Christianity, that introduced this idea that slavery needs to end. Do students actually know that? They have no clue about that. Do students actually know that slavery wasn't practiced in most states in the United States of America from the very beginning of things, that 9 out of 13 of the colonies had abolished, had no slavery in them? No, they think the entirety of the United States was slave owned. Do they realize that it was a very small minority of people who were actually slave owners? No, in their minds, they think it was everyone. They think every person in the U.S. was a white slave-owning person. They think it was all states, all counties, all cities. It was all political leaders. They don't realize from the very beginning there was a massive group of people who were adamantly against this and who were fighting against this, and they were white. There were massive groups of states and political leaders who were fighting against this, and they were white. The mass majority of people in the United States of America did not own slaves. And from the initial beginnings of this country, the push to end slavery started nearly immediately. And the United States of America literally went to war over this. 400,000 white men gave up their blood and died on a field to end slavery. They don't teach this, but I can guarantee you that the students know slavery existed, and they know how terrible and racist the United States of America, how discriminatory they are. Do they know the reality of the Democrat Party and their role in slavery, their role in the Civil War, their role in the Jim Crow era, their role in segregation and discrimination? Do they understand their role? Do they understand that the Democrat Party right now is the only group in the United States that is solely focused on the color of your skin? That's all they care about. What color is your skin? That should determine everything about your life. How much you're given, how much you're not given. They've always been focused on the color of your skin, and they still are. This woman, Hillary Clinton, I don't know what to say. I mean, don't demonize, then she demonizes. And she doesn't even use facts. The right's the one that's doing it. She doesn't use any facts. They're trying to get rid of slavery. She doesn't understand history. What do y'all think about this? Leave your comments below.